September 1897. Mrs. Edith Gifford and members of the New Jersey Women's Clubs board a yacht from Pier A in Lower Manhattan. They're heading north. Salt spray whips over the wave crests, and the ever-pervasive explosions and tumbling of rocks grow louder. The cliffs were being quarried out. Across the river, concern grew among locals. The monolith that had come to define a region was collapsing due to heavy industry, and it couldn't be rebuilt. Awareness was key. If the public could see for themselves what was happening, they could rally support to prevent it. And rally support they did. With help from wealthy donors like J.P. Morgan and the Rockefeller family, a new model for local conservation was formed. In 1900, Governor Theodore Roosevelt of New York and Governor Foster Voorhees of New Jersey officially created the Palisades Interstate Park Commission. It was open to the general population in 1909. But the idea of public land still began in the West. With the signing of the Yellowstone National Park Protection Act, President Ulysses S. Grant set aside the first national park in the U.S. It wouldn't be carved up for mining leases, private ranches, or the estates of the wealthy. Instead, it would be for public access, owned by the government, operated for the people. Yellowstone was novel at the time, an outlier for another 18 years until the establishment of Sequoia and Yosemite National Parks, and an additional 9 years until Mount Rainier National Park in Washington State. Eventually, a wave of support came to the east. Influenced by romanticists like Henry David Thoreau and John Muir, and art movements like the Hudson River School, a movement grew for the protection of wild places. The Adirondacks in 1884 and the Catskills in 1904 were protected under New York State's Constitution. Although meant to reforest and prevent reckless logging, the regulations put in place actually birthed new economies.
Or the delicious odor of flapjack, or a fresh mountain trout cooked to a turn.
At the turn of the 20th century, New York State's remaining forests were spread thin and losing stock. The New York Forest, Fish, and Game Conservation Commission warned that the state would run out of timber within 50 years. New York State, DEC. So New York set up a system. Land that was formerly unproductive, unusable, or abandoned was bought by the state for reforestation. They created utilitarian forests, who served to beef up timber reserves and protect their watersheds. Of course, these areas would also be open for recreation. They weren't forever wilds, and they were never meant to be. Active management was, and still is, crucial for these places. New York's goals for state forests usually include a lot of different projects for rehabilitating the land and making them better. Many state forests harvest trees to generate income, improve habitats, and increase biodiversity. Plans are updated periodically to see what work still needs to be done. But it's not a perfect system, and only so much can be done at one time. Some forests have minimal proposals and only interim plans for the future. State forests are not universally poor land either. Some are just excess, part of large-scale projects that never came to be. Places that already had local industries and purposes, places that people lived, worked, and survived for decades, are among lands held by the state. Stewart is one of the largest state forests in the Hudson Valley. Originally seized by the MTA through eminent domain, it was meant to be an expansion of Stewart Airport. Instead, it lay empty. It was fully abandoned by 1982. After decades of transition, it was given a new life as a state forest in the late 90s. It's open to hunting and fishing of all kinds in all seasons. In winter, it's a great place to snowshoe or cross-country ski. It's also open to snowmobiling. You can still see farming in some parcels leased out to the same farms that worked the land before. There's abundant wetlands all over the property, helping to filter water as it flows through the watershed. They're mostly between the ridgetops, in places where glaciers have left poorly drained soils and silt. Post-glacial wetlands are a really important part of the Hudson Valley watershed, and many of them sit on public lands. Great Swamp is one of these. Flowing partially in the Hudson River watershed and partially in the Connecticut River watershed, almost all 6,000 acres of it is public. And 450 acres of that is specifically part of the state forest system. You see, state forests aren't just forests. There are subcategories. And they usually hold some kind of significance for the environment, or were too small to be their own entity. This includes Great Swamp Wildlife Management Area, an important stop for migratory birds. Westchester holds some of the most unique parks in the Hudson Valley. They're the most used parks, the kind you go for a run at or walk your dog. If you live in the Hudson Valley, there's bound to be several within a 20-minute drive. They have more facilities than state forests. They're more polished, more put together, and ultimately their purposes are different. Some showcase engineering feats, like the Croton Gorge Dam. Others are unique natural features, like Croton Point Park, a peninsula stretching out into the Hudson River. The highest point in Westchester is also in public hands. Mountain Lakes Park is one of the larger county parks in the system, home to Bailey Mountain. It's hardly a mountain, but it is the highest elevation in the county, and is marked with a simple cairn on the hilltop. In my opinion, the most interesting park in Westchester is also its largest. Welcome to Ward Pound Ridge. Once part of the Cortlandt Manor estate in the colonial era, all 4,100 acres are open to public access for a small fee. It holds picturesque meadows, rhododendron-covered hollows, and peaceful streams. It's dotted with old farmhouses and rocky outcrop views. And there's a trailside museum built by the Civilian Conservation Corps. But there's more to the picture that we're not seeing here. The park is also really notable for being a stopping point for the Leatherman, a strange vagabond who wandered between New York and Hartford in the 19th century. He walked around in a full suit of leather and had a network of caves and outcrops that he slept in, including one in Pound Ridge. The Leatherman walked the sloop from sometime in the 1850s to the day he died, in March 1889. The route took 34 days and about 365 miles. The Hudson Valley's crown jewel is the Hudson Highlands. A series of Appalachian ridges running southwest to northeast, they're the heart of the region. Many of the ridges are up to 1 billion years old, parts of the Redding Prong. One of the most interesting things about them, though, is something that you can't actually see. Hidden in plain sight, the Hudson River is the only true fjord on America's east coast, reaching depths of up to 200 feet, where fresh water from the inland mountains mixes with the brackish water from the Atlantic. Early Europeans, like the Swedish botanist Per Kam, wrote about these ridges too, describing their bare summits and foggy basins. He noted their steep sides, covered in firs, cedars, and deciduous trees, and that the land was rocky and unfit for farming. Kam also wrote about the straightness of the river, something that we now know is glacial. The scars of glaciers are everywhere in the highlands. They formed the Hudson River, deepening an already natural valley into a fjord that it is today. The glacial landscapes attracted artists who showcased their beauty to the world. Until the late 19th century, they were still largely taken for granted. At one point, there was even a mountaintop casino at Mount Beacon, with a railroad that brought tourists to the top. South Beacon Mountain is the tallest of the Highland summits, at 1,611 feet above sea level. During the Revolutionary War, signal fires were lit at the top, giving the mountain its name. During the 1930s, the Civilian Conservation Corps constructed a fire tower on its summit. It was one of several built during the Great Depression, including one at Mount Ninum Multiple Use Area, another ridgetop in the Highlands. How these Highland parks came to be today, though, is complex. Some of them, like Fawnstock, were mining land. Dozens of mines were built in the 18th and 19th century to supply the West Point foundry and rapid industrialization. They became obsolete after discovery of silver and iron in the Midwest, and the mines were left to flood in the hills. The Bear Mountain Harriman complex of parts also has its own reasons for being. In 1908, the state of New York planned to relocate Sing Sing Prison to Bear Mountain. Railroad executive E.H. Harriman started an opposition. He came to terms with New York State. A park would be built instead of a prison. It was financed by him and his estate. The Harriman family donated most of the capital and land to start the park complex. They worked alongside many of the Palisades organizers, including George W. Perkins. Perkins gathered donations from people like J.D. Rockefeller and J.P. Morgan, who he had worked with before at the Palisades. The money was used to build facilities across the region and reforest areas that had been logged, and the park was to be overseen by the Palisades Interstate Park Commission. The Appalachian Trail is unique. Winding over 2,150 miles from Georgia to Maine, it's never too far away. It crosses local roads and passes through towns all the time. But many people would never know that. A simple footpath winding through the ridge tops and valleys in between, you could live near it and for half the year not even know it exists. Until thru-hiker season starts. Then upwards of 3,000 people will attempt the trail each year. Only 1 in 4 of those will make it all the way to the end. The AT was proposed in 1921 and was made an official National Scenic Trail in 1968. More importantly for us, the Hudson Valley holds significance to the trail. The first section of the entire AT was opened at Bear Mountain and Harriman Parks in 1923. The trail's lowest point is also here, at the Bear Mountain Zoo. Me and Harrison started on the far side of Bear Mountain, climbing through the mist and fog to Perkins Memorial Tower at the summit. We are going up to the top of Bear Mountain now, starting the hike, and I'll check in when we get there. Named for George W. Perkins Sr., the tower was built to honor his memory as the first president of the Palisades Interstate Park Commission, the very same one from the beginning of this film. Descending the mountain, we reached the Trailside Museum and Zoo, the lowest point on trail. While charging phones in the office, I had a look around the geology building showcasing the time that shaped these cliffs. We crossed the bridge and started the slog upwards to the ridgetops, eventually finding the campsite tucked away in the mountainside. Alright, so we're working on dinner now. Doing beef marinara. We got fettuccine alfredo.
Beef pasta marinara.
It's gonna be gas.
I put less water in mine, so boil quicker.
Boil quicker.
I also drink straight from the solar system.
Looks rough.
Tasted pure, tasted a little wild, a little adventurous.
Straight from the stream.
It's about 6 o'clock. Tomorrow's gonna be relatively light. Only about 3 miles. We're gonna stop at this cafe along the way, so it should be pretty good. No worries there. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
After crossing another gravel back road, the AT meandered back into the hills and followed the ridgetops once again. From out of the fog, the cafe appeared. The AT had brought us back to everyone else's world again. Cars sped past us, and laborers stopped for lunch. And we did too. Fog began to dissipate as we hiked onwards towards Greymoor, the next campsite for the night. The next day was uneventful, and in an attempt to disconnect, I left off filming to focus on being outdoors and enjoying the moment. We packed up mid-morning and made the drive back home. Far from peak through hiking season, we had only seen a shell of the trail. In fact, we only saw one other backpacker on our entire trip. On so many places on the AT, you're a stone's throw to civilization. But just as you may never have noticed the hiking bulletins on the side of the county roads, you would never really know how close you are to it. Many places are just a lonely stretch of trail, a dirt track up in the woods to the naked eye. But it's a dirt track that's open to anyone. Anyone can pack a bag and start walking. It just takes the will. The AT is a great equalizer, open to all. It provides a freedom, the freedom of walking. Focus on the day ahead of you. Whether an escape from the stresses of modern life, or just a group of friends getting outside, the Appalachian Trail provides. And it's important that it stays that way. Personal responsibility on the Appalachian Trail is the same as any other public land. Leave no trace so the next generation can appreciate it. Public lands embody the very ideals of America. The right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. They represent the people that came before us, but also the people who have yet to live, future generations. Public lands are what we raise our children on, hunting, hiking, and stewarding the natural world. The freedoms they allow to equally access nature across all walks of life, to canoe the next river, climb the next summit, and chase the next new experience, are deeply ingrained in our culture. They provide refuge from the modern world for both animals and people. Hundreds of endangered species live in habitats spread across America's public lands, from hellbender salamanders in the Great Smokies to the bog turtles of New York's wetlands. Hundreds of people visit these lands day in and day out. But they're not guaranteed. Invasive species, budget cuts, and disputes over the purpose of these lands threaten their existence daily. The purpose of these lands is more divisive than it seems, and even revered conservationists disagreed. John Muir arguing that land should be kept in a wild state, while Gifford Pinchot thought that sustainable management was the way forward. On one hand, access creates experiences. When people can grow up in these lands and experience them for themselves, they're more likely to care about them. In fact, most conservation is funded by people who use the land, whether it's park passes or duck stamps. But too much access also creates issues. By making areas easy to get to, you're inherently increasing the impact. When paving over the forest to make a scenic park, are you really supporting the forest? Or are you supporting the people? Are you creating a preserve or just a facade of one? That's exactly what's happening at the Hudson Fjord Trail.
Yeah, I know everyone comes into our shop, so I know everybody. Yeah.
I know the people that don't like it. I know the people that like it.
There's a lot of people that don't.
Oh yeah.
My name is William Geip. I'm the store manager and one of the owners here. I'm a New York State fly fishing guide and an advocate for public land. Yeah, the Fjord Trail is a proposed 8 to 9 mile trail spanning from Beacon to Cold Spring, having multiple access points, creating a safe environment for people commuting in. Parking situations are changing all up and down Route 9 here. So a lot of change in the area, which obviously people will be pro for or people will be against.
And so why would people necessarily be for or against this? What's like the pros and cons, do you think?
I'd say the pro for our for the hiker would be accessibility. A new trail system, a trail system that will be inclusive to people with strollers, people with, handicap disabilities, so wheelchair accessibility. The other things that it'll be bringing to the area, like I mentioned, safe parking through the Route 90 corridor, additional parking lots being added, public facilities like restrooms, which generally, other than the porta johns at some of the trailheads, the town doesn't have public restrooms, so it'll help address those situations as well.
Do you want to talk for a moment about the right-of-way and accessibility regarding MTA and the Hudson River access?
Yeah.
Because I know that's a huge issue.
What I've seen as an angler and, I've heard as an angler and visually seen as an angler, the Hudson River here has been subsequently pretty much cut off for public access and public use, except for your handful of designated parks or boat launches. But for a boat launch, you can only use it if you have a boat. Most people don't have a boat. So if the proposed fjord trail, being able to give people access to do birding, to just enjoy the scenic nature of looking across to the west side of the Hudson, looking at Storm King, looking up to the Newburgh Beacon Bridge, and it's beautiful. And what really the train line, which is a great asset to many people, had done is cut off that land, completing a complete barrier for anyone who lives in a town that doesn't have an access point. You got to leave to go do that. Gaining a trail, gaining public access, and I would say what is not the norm right now with what's going on with the boundary waters, what's going on with many of the western states with water right. It's pretty imperative that we support things like this that are giving land to people, not taking it away.
Because once you take it, it's
extremely
difficult to get it back.
It's hard to get it back. Once things are written into, it's hard to take law and legislation away. To be able to protect, but also to be given a new trail system and a new park for locals and people from tourism areas from all around us, it's going to be a huge asset for, I think, everyone.
And how do you think tourism affects, like, not just Cold Spring, but, your business specifically and just the whole area? I mean, what do you think
Tourism,
this would be without tourism?
We're blessed that we have an extremely strong local clientele. That's something that we've been able to build through our business relationship. Been here for 13 years, so that says something in itself. We welcome anyone. I travel all over the world.
Yeah.
I don't get shunned out as long as everyone's respectful and you respect the town, respect nature. Not everyone is going to follow the rules. That's just inevitable. It happens everywhere. There's going to be way more good than there will be bad. I do believe that the people who are extremely against the idea of the trail, hopefully they'll see a different side of it once it comes to life. And if they don't, then that's okay.
And now this brings me to kind of the next item of discussion. Accessibility versus conservation. I mean, I'm looking around at the research and, the estimates on this, even from Fjord Trail themselves, and they're saying, up to 50 acres of habitat destruction, and other sources are saying more and other are less. I mean, do you know?
I would have to know, I would have to see what habitat they're talking about. Are they talking about the area of land that they cleared to make the parking lots? I would say, did they own land? Did they clear their land?
Do you know anything in regards to that? Because I know that the trail is, on the actual river itself. So obviously they're going to have to be doing construction right next to the river.
All of this has been in
environmental
part
impacts
with
of
the Department of Environmental Conservation, which
Right.
I volunteer with, which I have friends who work for. So I have full faith in the stewardship and the responsibility that the state takes. Riverkeeper, which was the nonprofit organization that cleaned up the entire Hudson River, they're also signed off and in part of this. So why would they sign off on any of this work? They hadn't done the proper
Their due
impact.
diligence,
Yep.
yeah.
But then also the supervision and the working alongside. You know, it's not just all privately funded, privately paid people. A lot of what non-for-profit groups do is they gather the money.
Right.
So town of Cold Spring might get the bid. That would be
Right.
great for the town of Cold Spring.
Yeah.
Town of Beacon, city of Beacon might get the bid. That would be great for the town of Beacon. It's a
Probably
state
also
park.
Local businesses as well would get involved in that in a way.
Um,
Whether it's
so, like-
construction companies or whatever else.
So we're,
Not so
you know,
much.
what we do as a business here is we're part of what's called 1% for the Planet. It's a nonprofit organization where 1% of our proceeds every year get donated to the local land trusts and the conservation NGOs. So money that anyone that comes into this store and purchases is going directly back to the trail systems here. So that's what we do as a business, and that's what a lot of these non-for-profits like the Hudson Highlands Land Trust and Riverkeeper, all of these people who are saying yay are a part of it. So I don't see why would all of these NGOs and people who have investment and care for the land shit on it.
Just suddenly walk back on.
Yeah,
it.
exactly. For all of these people
Yeah,
to just say,
exactly.
we want this park, and we're gonna, not care about the environment while
Yeah.
we're doing it. It just seems silly. And that's just like naysaying. It's a lot of negative. What this is there is private investment, but there's also a lot of money from the state and from donor organizations that are going to this.
Right. So accountability is really the biggest part of all these projects. You have to have people that get involved in them and keep them going, or else it doesn't work.
Yeah.
It's the kind of the long-term plans that are
Yeah.
really vital.
And a statement I'd said to you before we started recording is that means the more people that are going to enjoy it, the more people that actually are given the access and do enjoy it will then start to care about it.
Right.
And once people start to care about it, they will protect it. What is going on right now, but if the Fjord Trail were to not come in, all of that land would still be not used. It would be, we have the insane amount of invasive plants here that love to feed ticks. All of our invasive plants. So if we can remove all that, which they have teams that are doing section by section, I just think it's the betterment for all.
So what do you think is the best way to get educated? I know the DEC does programs and like all of that, but is it really just up to personal
Probably no.
responsibility?
It should be like it's been so many years. I don't know. Maybe remove a computer program class and put in an arbory class or a woodshop class or some sort of like BOCES is a great example for here in New York. They have ton of younger, I believe, just more younger children's
Right.
educational programs, bringing fry trout into the classrooms and teaching them all about that. I think that is where it begins. It needs to begin when you're a kid and you're being taught how to just operate, how to treat things with respect. And as an adult, like I said, all we can do is speak up for the things that can't talk, animals and plants. Speak up for it. If you see something being done that's incorrect, correct it, and hopefully the person in the situation will learn from that. That's really all you can do.
Right.
It's up to each one of us to take care of that and
That makes sense.
to do our own due diligence and pick up our own trash and pick up other people's. That's really the only way. Like, everyone should have the free ability to access public land, to enjoy public land, and it is our job as people who were taught and who have grown up in it to then educate others, because once they know and once they care, they're going to spread it.
Right.
Right.
And as an adult, what do you think is really like, if you want to get involved and do more things outdoors, and what's like the best way where would you start?
There are tons of different niche organizations that you can get into that benefit the outdoors, whether you care about clean water, whether it's you care about clean air, whether it's you care about clean beaches.
Or hopefully all of them.
All of them, yeah. Well, whatever your specific niche is, you know, like mine is clean water, cold, clean water for trout habitat, because that stems down into everything else. That's where I go and spend my time. Tree planting, trail maintenance, you know, electric shocking for trout, you know, doing all of those things that give the state the information to then legislate down and protect.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Absolutely, man. I'm going to give you my card, so if you have any other questions, just feel free to shoot me an email.
All right.
Yeah, dude.
Thanks for everyone there.
Yeah.
At the same time, we live in a state of suburbanization. Land that once served as corridors between protective parks may now become condos and shopping centers. The biggest threats to Hudson Valley public lands aren't the public lands themselves. It's their fragmentation. Just as isolated people often face mental health struggles, isolated landscapes are struggling too. And the best thing we can do for them is support them. Learn about your public lands. Go to local zoning meetings and understand the system. Every landscape counts, and every person that can support them counts twice as much. Thinking like a mountain. Aldo Leopold. In those days, we had never heard of passing up a chance to kill a wolf. In a second, we were pumping lead into the pack, but with more excitement than accuracy. How to aim a steep downhill shot is always confusing. When our rifles were empty, the old wolf was down, and a pup was dragging a leg into impassable slide rocks. We reached the old wolf in time to watch a fierce green fire dying in her eyes. I realized then, and have known ever since, that there was something new to me in those eyes. Something known only to her and to the mountain. I was young then, and full of trigger itch. I thought that because fewer wolves meant more deer, that no wolves would mean hunter's paradise. But after seeing that green fire die, I sensed that neither the wolf nor the mountain agreed with such a view. Since then, I have lived to see state after state extirpate its wolves. I have watched the face of many a newly wolfless mountain, and seen the south-facing slopes wrinkle with a maze of new deer trails. I have seen every edible bush and seedling browsed, first to anemic destitute, then to death. I have seen every edible tree defoliated to the height of a saddle horn. Such a mountain looks as if someone had given God a new pruning shears and forbidden him all other exercise. In the end, the starved bones of the hope for deer herd, dead of its own too much, bleach with the bones of the dead sage, or molder under the high-line junipers. I now suspect just as a deer herd lives in mortal fear of its wolves, so does a mountain live in mortal fear of its deer. And perhaps with better cause, for while a buck pulled down by wolves can be replaced in 2 to 3 years, a range pulled down by too many deer may fail of replacement in as many decades. So also with cows. The cowman who cleans his range of wolves does not realize that he is taking over the wolf's job of trimming the herd to fit the range. He has not learned to think like a mountain. Hence, we have dust bowls and rivers washing the future into the sea.